All right, as we come into the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq 100, we need to talk about what's happening on the day. Going into today, it was important to realize what was happening at the end of close on Friday. And as you jump in here, you can see in a close Friday, we break lows on Nasdaq right here. We get rejected and we push down coming into the open of futures yesterday. If you're following me on Twitter, then you were kind of notified about that, and you pretty much saw it based on everyone's Twitter. Everyone was kind of talking about futures opening up red. From there, also, we had this consolidation basically going into this morning around 5 a.m. going into 8 a.m. market open. You start to bounce on futures. Now, obviously, we continue up into our key level and we get a rejection. That's where we're at right now. Now, I still have some trades I'm in right now. I'm going to talk about them in this video and kind of how I see us moving over the next few days, really in the short term, about how we're going to be trading this and how I'm looking to trade this right now. Not financial advice, do your own DD. Before we get into that, I have to ask you to consider doing two things: liking and subscribing every day. As you can see, I'm making videos for you, so you are up to date on the news and what to expect and what I am liking trading wise. So it helps out a lot if you like and subscribe. But let's get to the video. So going in here, essentially here, I was still in my puts on Amazon and I was debating getting other positions as well, but I decided to play it safe and to not over leverage. Food for thought. On most of my positions I've been trading, I have been looking at swings for October 21st, and I had about between $8,000 and $12,000 going into those trades. Now, over the past few, 2 weeks, we've profited quite a bit. As you've seen, you've really just been trending back and forth. And I try to be really transparent, showing you guys what I was looking at. Now, coming into today, I have a smaller position, and it was around $3,000 at the close of Friday. And then between all of today, that position got up to around $6,000, and I kind of cut it there, and that's where I left it. I didn't add any more. I didn't cut the position, but I just didn't add any more to it. Now you can see us moving back up. And so middle of the day, I started to make this decision of what was I going to do here, because as you can see, you kind of get this little flat line here and you kind of get a little bit of a flag going on, ready for continuation. Obviously, you start to continue back up to this key level here. Now, for me, I wasn't too worried about this. Where I would have been worried is if you broke and mounted, right? So if you go to my Twitter, you can also see this. Again, I try to keep you guys as updated as possible, and at least, what I can do, right? I try to. So if you go over here, I just want to just show you so I'm not BSing you. Basically, what I was saying, interesting price retest, keep making lows. Last week's open at 11.35-ish, but the lack of volume and follow through is kind of what I'm worried about. So I said you could bounce all the way up here, 11.35. That's where I was looking at it. But volume was kind of lackluster. Volume did pick up near the end of the day. It's worth mentioning. So that's something really important to see. But ultimately, you hit this level, right? You get rejected, boom, and that's where we're at end of the day. So not too many, answers really at the end of the day. And there's a few things you need to discuss about this as well, because we know a few things as well from Twitter, if you follow me, that we've been talking about on the day. So I want to look at this specifically and just show you some of these highlights. So one, you had Fed Williams saying that inflation should drop down to 3% by next year. And he's saying this when basically there's been no drop on inflation so far. So he just has a gut feeling, I guess, not providing any data. But he also did follow up and say that we're in a really sticky situation. It's bad. Next up, you had this big statement. So the United Nations called upon the Fed and basically everyone globally to slow down with their rate hikes. Now, this was a really interesting thing. So they come out with this thesis or telling people to slow down because obviously world economy is in a lot of pain. Now, when the UN comes out and tells people stop cutting rates because it's putting us into a really dangerous spot, probably tells you you're in some sort of concern. So looking here, broad sense of what's happening here, I still think everything looks really bad. Nothing's changed there. But I do want to highlight right now, I'm down about give or take 1,800 on my Amazon trade. So that's really worth mentioning. When I highlight there, it's about 22%, I believe, right now. You had a really good bounce at the end of the day. So I think it's really closer towards like 15%. But I just want to give benefit of the doubt a little bit. I'd rather be a little bit more aggressive on how much I'm down than lie and say that I'm, up X amount or whatever, right? So I want to be clear about that. And on top of that, I really didn't trade anything else. I want to be really clear about that. I didn't trade anything else. That's all I took today. And I didn't open any new trades. I like to be very transparent about that. I also want to say that you don't need to be looking to trade every single day. Even in our Discord, it happens a lot. So we have people talking about, I want to trade this, trade that. And I'm not here to overtrade or to throw out thousands of trades or signals, right? That's not what I'm here to do. I'm here to make money for myself and hopefully educate people along the way as to what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. So hopefully you guys can see what I'm looking at here, why I suspected this to get rejected. You came right up to the weekly, got rejected. So hopefully you can see all that. Now, there's a few things I want to talk about here as well before we, go into targets and stocks I'm liking, right? One, looking at Bookmap, today was a really interesting day. As we look here, all I really want to focus on is your CVD. Yeah, it was green. You had buying overall volume kicking in there, and it doesn't surprise me. Overall volume was bullish as well. Now, today was one of the interesting things that we've seen in a while, and you haven't seen this in a hot minute, to say the least, right? Basically, 8:30's market open. You see flatline. The blue line represents, things that you won't see on your level 2 data, hidden orders, right? Look at what happens all day long. Massive, massive short positions, 2,500 lots. 1,500 lots, more to 1,500 lots. It just flows over and over. End of the day, you get a little bit of a buy near the end of the day. You get your one buy order, 1,500, but then immediately back down to the short side. So today, in my opinion, a lot of this flow on the hidden order book, dark pool, whatever you want to call it, right, was bearish, which as we've seen over the past few videos, it has kind of helped us along the way of looking at that. On top of that, looking at the overall flow of options. And I like to talk about this because it shows what big money is doing. Now, before I go into those options, I also want to highlight a few things. If you go into some specific stocks like Apple and these other ones, you're actually seeing quite a bit of premium being put to the call side. So I want to make that very clear. But it's important to see where that volume is flowing. You're not seeing it near dated. You're seeing it go at least into January. And then beyond that, the bigger calls are going for almost 2 years out. So I want to make that very clear that these are not short dated options. I know people are going to talk about this, but I want to make that really, really clear. Even on my Amazon position, right? Like you have some for mid next year, right? I'm not interested in mid next year. I'm interested in right now. And then, so when you look at these, you might see some bullish flow coming in, but how are they hedging these positions? I'll tell you. They're betting on short-term downside. Now, again, I mentioned to you last week as well that you're seeing a slowdown on the October puts, and they're going more into November, and they're going more into December. Now, you're still seeing flow come in there. Don't get me wrong. You're still seeing some really big put positions, right? So we can actually zoom in here really quick. And as you get in here, October 21st, still very big position, very big right here as well. You're seeing they're still coming in. But the biggest ones are again coming in for November. You're having a lot come in for December as well, as you can see here. A strangle coming in here. So you're seeing a lot of these positions being established as well. So I want to make that really clear, go over this, make sure people actually can see what's happening here and exactly what I'm looking at. And the same can be said for Qs as well. Maybe it's a little bit less bearish coming in here. And you actually saw some of these bigger orders come in near the end of the day here, going into Power Hour. It's worth mentioning. And then going into VIX as well, which I need to talk about. And again, which is very bullish there. Now, so looking at that, we can look at Bookmap is showing us short side coming in heavy throughout the entire day, the entire move up. People were establishing short positions. Now, does this mean that you have to go down? No. I like to always say that. You never have to go anywhere. If I was so bullish or so bearish, then I would be all in, right? If I knew we had to go to X, Y, and Z. But actually, this is one of my smaller positions that I've established, and I've continued to tell you guys that, compared to my previous plays of when I was entering here and here on SPY puts, right? So it's worth mentioning that. Now, as we look at this for continuation down, if you start getting the follow through to the downside, I'll probably stack up more of my position and enter a little bit larger. If you start getting above this area, I'll probably end up closing my short side position because chances are going to go towards 11.6, 11.55. So I want to make that really clear. If you're looking here at indexes, what am I looking for? If going into tomorrow or tonight you get above and you mount, in my opinion, you are looking for a press towards 11.5, 11.6. If you remain below and continue to get rejected from this level, what do I expect? I expect you to continue coming back towards the downside. Something that I'm extremely shocked that did not happen today was a VWAP test. You didn't get one test of the VWAP essentially all day long since 4 a.m. Central, right? You didn't get one test of that line. So I do want to see the pressure push you back down onto VWAP, which you have about 150 points, give or take, to go to get there right now. I would love to see it happen during market hours and not during the after hours. Okay, so that's what I'm looking at right now. That's what I'm seeing. Now you do have a new level that I will be watching in your demand, which has now been established roughly here at 1100 flat down to 10 at 9.6. So you're seeing a new level of support being established. So you want to see how we react if we come back down to this level. And chances are, if we do end up coming back down, you have to wait and see, do we see buyers step back into the market? That's going to be the real question here, is how do buyers and sellers react now? That's ultimately what we need to see, because something that we've known over the past, week and a half, 2 weeks, is that ultimately buyers and sellers continuation has been lackluster, right? What does that mean? We haven't really had clear fall through like we had previously, right? Clear fall through. It's been really down, then back up, then down, then back up, then down, then back up, then down, then back up, right? Just over and over and over. And it's just following this pattern. So if you're here and you're watching this and you're like, oh, well, we're bullish today and Tyler, you were wrong. I encourage you just to take a step back, get off the small time frames and look at the bigger picture here, right? We're still making lower lows and higher lows, which means we are still, in my opinion, bearish and continuing towards the downside. Now, if we start to mount above 11.35 and start pushing back up to 11.6, then maybe we can stop having those conversations and we can start looking for a reversal towards the upside. But until then, in my opinion, this is where I have to stay and what I have to be looking for right now. So this is where overall my viewpoint is on the market and what I'm looking at, right? Okay, so stocks that I'm liking, stocks for downside, etc. First, I want to talk about Tesla. I want to just go over this really quickly. Tesla, you're going down, and the only reason you're going down is because they missed on deliveries. And we have earnings coming up, and I was just talking about this with Discord. I am very cautious with earnings this season, and I would recommend that you do your DD specifically if you're interested in trading earnings, because this could be really interesting for more downside. This is one of the first times we've seen Tesla miss on deliveries, and this could definitely be a sign of weakness on the market, especially with what's happening with Apple as well. So keep that on your radar. I also want to talk about VIX. VIX. So really interesting behavior you're seeing here, and I want to go to the 15 minutes so you can see. So basically on the day, you come out at roughly today at around $32, and then you just start dropping towards the downside. Now, this is this morning at 2 a.m. when VIX opens. When market opens, you're right here. So I want to make this really, really, really clear. This is your market open. Okay, this is when 8:30 a.m. US stock market opens. You drop down initially, and then you trend sideways all day long at $30. This was some of the weirdest, most interesting behavior that I've seen from VIX in a while. And it reminds me of what we saw happening down here, right? So we saw us consolidate in this $28 to $24 region back and forth for some time. Now we're in this area of consolidation right now between 34 and this $30 range, and we're trying to hold this $30 range, obviously. So I'm really interested to see if we hold this range. As you hold 30, in my opinion, you still look bearish and you still have to be looking for downside. So again, I don't make my trades based on one indicator. I use a lump of things. I use a lot of technicals, a lot of fundamentals, right? So I want to make that really clear as well. Number 2 is DXY. I'm really shocked DXY did not slip more on the day. You broke previous highs you had established here, and now you're pushing back down. So next line of defense, in my opinion, roughly around 10.8. You had a really nice run up, and it's not a surprise that DXY is consolidating. I also want to mention what we mentioned in the last video, that China is definitely selling off a lot of dollar. So you need to be considering that as well. But it's worth mentioning with what's happening right now that the dollar still looks relatively strong, all things considered. Next up, J&K. J&K, I mentioned this as well. You kind of broke below your higher lows that you had established. You were trying to establish those there. And now you're kind of just riding that trend as we speak. Not necessarily very bearish, not really bullish, if you will, right? Because you break below, you bounce above, break below, bounce above. So that's what I'm looking at there. So overall, that's how I'm viewing the market, what I'm looking at, the big concerns here. On SPY, I want to be really clear here as well. If I'm looking at this range, I'm looking for top side test maybe of 370.5 roughly. You still have not got a test there, but it's worth mentioning as we look at ES and Nasdaq futures that ES is definitely stronger than the Nasdaq, which the Nasdaq has led the market overall for the past few weeks. But the Nasdaq is right here at the midpoint, whereas ES is already testing its highs up here, which is relative the same as NQ testing 11.6, right? So I want to highlight that ES is all the way up here. Nasdaq is still down here. So I definitely think there's a lack of correlation here on Nasdaq and ES. And this is typically one of the harder times to trade when they're not directly correlated and following each other to a T. But I still think Nasdaq has been the best leader on the market. And that's the one that I'm going to continue to follow and is getting rejected at this level once again. SPY, very similar things. So you can see SPY came to last week's level, got above and tried to mount, and it's still mounting those levels right now. So I want to make that very clear of what I'm looking for and how I'm trading here. I'm definitely treading carefully as we go. I have dated positions, so I still feel comfortable, and I want to make that really, really clear that I still feel very comfortable in how I'm trading this. But I want people to also understand of how I'm looking at this and what I see going forward here and the key signs that I'm following as well. So no real trade ideas going for you into tomorrow. I do believe puts were awesome on most everything. Like I could just go down a list really quick. Microsoft coming right into resistance at 241, getting rejected. Amazon coming right into resistance at around 116.5, getting rejected. NVIDIA 126 getting rejected. You know, the list will go on and on and on. Previous lows getting rejected, right? Over and over and over. So I don't want people to get too, confused or upset by this, but hopefully this sheds some light on how I looked at the market today. Nothing too interesting. I didn't really take any trades besides adding a few more Amazons. That was it from me. But just know going into the market, you do not have to trade every single day. Okay. You can be patient, you can be passive, you can start establishing longer dated positions to overall play the trend because the trend is going to be your friend and you never want to counter trade that trend.